Hi everyone, I am back with another video. This time is not a COVID video because I've stopped doing those. But today I'm
Yay!
here with yay, I'm here with
Yay!
I'm here with Tom from Florida, and I don't know where to start to introduce you because you have been walking several Caminos. You have been volunteering a lot at the Pilgrims Office, and as lately as a few weeks ago. And then you've also written a book. So I was thinking we could talk a little bit about all of that. But first of all, how did the Camino start with you? How did it start? How did you find out about it?
By chance, one afternoon in the autumn of 2012, I was retired. I wasn't doing much of anything. I was sitting on the sofa one Saturday afternoon watching TV, and a travel program came up. There's this fellow in the Seattle area named Rick Steves.
Yep.
All Americans will know him,
Yep.
who does a series of predominantly European travel videos, and they're about a half hour long on public television station. And I was just literally channel surfing, and I happened to hit the beginning of it, and the title was Galicia and the Camino de Santiago. And I said, haven't seen that one. So I just sat and I watched it. And after 5 minutes, I was writing in ink on my arm, thanks to Google. And I said, wow, this is so great. I never knew this existed. And then after the program was over, it was straight over to Mr. Google and and among the first links that came up were the Wikipedia link to the Way of St. James and a link to the forum, which was down in the footnotes. And literally, I found you the day I found out about it. I joined the forum virtually right away because I said, this is like so intriguing, I got to learn more. So I started lurking on the forum, and I Googled it. I found out about the movie The Way, that movie, as we say. I had a Netflix. At the time, Netflix was mailing CDs. We weren't streaming. And so I ordered the CD. You know, I watched it 3 times. I made my wife sit through it twice, and then I watched it 2 more times. And my reaction was, I'm totally going to do this. So I started looking at the forum and reading opinions, and made friends with my local clerks at the REI store, you know, the outdoor store. And I proceeded to accumulate the necessary supplies. And I did my first Camino 6 months later at the end of April 2013 from
So it took 6 months from you learned about it till you were walking. That's pretty fast.
Yeah, from the States, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, people who live in the UK or on the continent just hop on a train and go.
Yeah.
For me, it took a little bit more planning. As I said earlier, I was already retired, so that wasn't a consideration. It was more learning how to get it right so I didn't make stupid mistakes, and doing the necessary research. And the forum was invaluable for that. It remains so to this day, except I find myself on the giving end of advice instead of sucking it up.
Yeah, I was looking at your profile on the forum earlier today, and I could see here. So you started with the Camino Frances 2013. Yeah. You've done that in 14 as well.
Yeah.
And then the Portuguese 15, 17.
I did.
And then
Porto in 2015.
Okay.
10 days, walking the interior route, the traditional route. And then 2017, I walked from Lisbon.
Wow. And then the Madrid in 2016.
That's correct.
And then the Invierno in 2018.
Right.
And then you're
2019, I planned to walk the Primitivo, but health conditions kind of threw a wrench in my, or spanner in my spokes, and I had to pull the plug.
Yeah. Do you have any favorites of those Caminos?
I got to tell you, the Invierno was the most beautiful route that I walked of the 4 different routes I've done. The Frances will always be special because it was the first one. And it's sort of my touchstone or frame of reference for everything Camino. I really enjoy the walk from Porto. And I must say, though, that when you come from Lisbon, until you hit Tomar and maybe Coimbra, and a lot of people say this, there's entirely too much road walking, hazardous road walking, and not enough Camino ambiance. So, but once you hit the university towns, especially Coimbra, it gets much more interesting. And then, of course, you get to Porto.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have to say the Inverno was the most beautiful, albeit least developed. But if you're prepared for that, it's okay.
Yeah. And then you have done volunteering. I'm looking here at your profile. 2014 volunteer, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And I'm sure it would have been 20 and 21 if it wasn't for the COVID pandemic.
Well, yeah, but I was there this year. I worked at the office for about 8 days before I had to interrupt my stay and rush home for a family emergency. But I just haven't had time to edit that
yet. Yeah. No, I understand. How is volunteering? Tell us about a typical day as a volunteer at the Pilgrims Office.
Oh dear, I have to caveat this and say there's pre-COVID and post-COVID, and the regrettable thing is that things are changing in the office. The program is in the process of changing. I've alluded to this in some forum posts, but because my Spanish is, or as I say, hablo español como un niño. I speak Spanish like a child. I'm not up to interviewing people at the counter. So when pilgrims come in to get their Compostela, they're not going to see me yet behind the counter. I can ask questions. I can process the answers. But if somebody goes off the script, I'm lost.
Yeah.
If somebody comes in and is speaking a dialect, or they have a heavy accent, or they're speaking very fast, I'm sorry, I just can't pick what I need out of it. So we have an agreement. Tom comes to volunteer, and he does las todos otras cosas. He does everything else. And I literally, it doesn't matter. If it's legal, I do it. If it's not, they have to ask nice. But I'll do everything from picking up the trash to merchandising souvenirs to making sure everyone at the counter has everything they need to do to keep working, whether it's blank certificates, ink and or stamp pads, whatever it is. Well, in the days when we had first in line, first in, first out lines, I would work the line, would welcome people to Santiago, make sure they had their credentials ready for inspection by security. Then I would go inside and I would work the line. I would chat people up. It's amazing the number of people from all over the world, and even from countries, because of geopolitics, I would not normally meet people. From some of these.
Now this summer, I'm sure there was a lot of questions, as I see people when I pass by the Pilgrims Office now, that there's always these questions about the QR code on the outside. What talk a little bit about that without going into
Okay. In 2019, I worked for 4 weeks. Last half of July, first half of August. That's my custom. So I'm there for the two biggest summer holidays, the Festa de Santiago and the the Feast of the Assumption on 15 August. On the 4th of August, one of the permanent staff members came to me and he says, "Today we turn on the new system." I said, "Huh?" And then he explained what he was going to do. And I said, "Have you tested this?" He said, "No, this is going to be the test." I said, it's like August 4th, and it's the middle of the busy season, and there's hundreds of people on the line. Are you sure? Yeah, we're sure. Okay. When you're a volunteer, you just roll with it. No beta test, nothing. In the height of the busy season. So they rolled out the QR code system. And in the beginning, the QR code system consisted of going downstairs to the newish waiting room and going up to a kiosk and tapping the flag of the language you spoke. And it parallels the sign in the front hallway. So everything from Catalan to Catalan, Castellano, French, Italian, Spanish, Dutch, English, and you just press the flag, and a little ticket, like on cash register paper, pops out with a QR code and a number. The number's about 3 centimeters tall, big number, and that's your place in the queue. And the numbers start from 1 in the morning until whatever, usually 3 or 4 digits, until they turn the machine off when they've had enough and they can't handle anymore. Within 48 hours, they had people who had come in, gotten low numbers, and were on the street selling them. So they basically changed the system. You had to show a volunteer or a staff member your credential before they would let you push the button. So they had to man the kiosk. And we had all kinds of startup problems. Maybe they ought to have beta tested it, but que sera, sera. The advantage of the QR system, of that waiting in line system, is that if there's like a 200 number variance between the number currently being served, which is displayed around the place, and your ticket, you can leave the facility. You can go check into your lodgings or have lunch, have a beer, do whatever, have a shower. And they had the ability, if you scanned that barcode using the camera on your smartphone, it would take you directly to the web server, which would show you the number currently being served. So you could be remote, checking in on the queue until that number started getting towards your number. And basically, if it got under 100, you needed to pay your tab and start walking towards the office. It was less than 50, you needed to make haste. Because they generally they would summon the next 50 people in line to come in.
Yeah.
We only had 50 people ostensibly waiting in the hallway. And I'm still chatting those people up, and people are saying, why do we need to do this? We never did this before. 1,000 years we did it one way. Why do we have to do it this way? Yeah. So we got through it. Then Mr. COVID descended on us and things changed. What they did do, to their credit, is they wrote a routine on the webpage of the Pilgrim Office website. So you could go to the URL and input all of the data that you would normally handwrite on the form at the counter. It's called the Estadio form, which, as I understand it in Spanish, is like data collection form. And the way it used to work is 20 people would fill in successive lines until the form was filled, and they would do another one. Those hard copy forms are retained in case they're ever needed to look back in, but they're not online. So what they did is to replace the use of that shared use form, the pen, the clipboard, and all that rigmarole, because of COVID. That's an infection vector. You can catch COVID from surface icky germs. They came up with a system where you could put the exact same data in online before you reach Santiago. So in theory, you could be at home in the UK or Denmark or Norway, and you could fill in your data, then go on your Camino. And when you submitted your data, 2 things would happen. You would quickly get an SMS text message that gave you an alphanumeric code and said, has successfully submitted data. And then within a minute or so after that, you would get an email that had a link to a QR code that had the same alphanumeric number on it. So when you walked to the Pilgrim office and you go to the security guard, all security guard wants to see is that QR code on your phone, just like an airline boarding pass. That tells the security guard, we have your data successfully and I can admit you. So the security guard lets you in and tells you to go downstairs to get the first generation QR place in the line, place in the queue number. There are actually 2 QR codes. One has to do with the first one has to do with the submission of data, and get you into the building where you can get the second one. And then we get
It sounds complicated.
It is very complicated. And to be perfectly honest, some years ago, I wrote a white paper, and I don't put my name on these things because all ideas have to spring from within. It's just a culture.
Yeah.
I dealt with this when I worked for my own government, but sometimes just the messenger turns people off, or they, you always come up with clever ideas, but we can't give you credit for this. So I literally do white papers and I leave them on a desk when I leave. They can guess. So the original white paper had called for advanced submission of data, a QR code, the first part of it. And I didn't address the queuing, but then I addressed requesting immediate delivery of certificates. And the fine print was, we will use the best calligraphic fonts to laser print your certificates instead of making you wait for handwriting. And so they've done 2 steps, but they did them out of sequence. They did the QR waiting in line, then they did the data submission, but they won't, it's like the third rail, like the electrified rail. They won't touch that printing.
No, they want to do it in handwriting. I think it's part of the.
I got into
tradition.
I got into a discussion one day, and Don Segundo was there, and he doesn't speak English. So they were translating for him, and he basically said, "Nunca, never." He wanted tradition. So I just quipped to one of the staff members. I said, "Tell him this exactly as I say it. Please don't change any words. I will be polite." I said, "Well, Monsignor, if you want tradition, then you find 300 Benedictine monks. We can lock them in the basement, give them candles, parchment, and quills, and they can do Compostelas."
Yeah.
Because that's what it will take. So we haven't gotten there yet.
No, but it's people have, there's been some queues down there, but I think like it's kind of working out.
Well, there's an ironic thing, and I actually tested this when I was there. However, briefly this year, I sat behind the counter because I wanted to see how everything worked from their perspective, and I started using my watch with the second hand to informally time things. Well, what I discovered was that when they press the icon for send me the next person in the queue, it usually took about 30 seconds for the person to find the correct numbered desk position and present themselves.
Yeah.
The niceties took maybe another 30 seconds, just the introductions. How was your Camino? Welcome to Santiago. And then the longest part of the encounter at the desk was the writing of the certificates. Took anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes. So you had overall from the bong where the person says next person until it's like Felicidades, Vaya con Dios, is maybe 4 minutes. Meantime, I've seen it done as little as a minute and a half. But in the old system, the contact time was 7 to 10 minutes. So right off the top, rough number, back of the envelope, you're cutting the process time in half. The reason why people are still complaining, I think, about long wait times and not being able to get Compostelas is really supply and demand. Maybe 5-6 weeks ago, Don Segundo gave an interview. I can't remember if it was in El Correo or La Voz. And in the interview, he said something, forgive me, I'm paraphrasing. He said, COVID hit us hard too. We don't have a lot of resources. I can't afford to hire more people. So what we had to do is limit the number of Compostelas we can do each day. And there's been some personnel changes underneath the Archbishop, but north of the office management. But Don Segundo is now directly in charge of the office. The secular staff work under him. So he decreed that after we issue 1,200 numbers, we're going to shut the machine off. Problem is, when I was there in August, they were hitting that at noon.
Yeah, I guess they realize they have X number of people working at the desk. They can do so and so many per hour, and then they just calculate out how
And the
many
other
they can
problem
do.
is,
Yeah,
and this kind of segues into volunteers.
yeah,
Pre-COVID, there were as many, blue shirt voluntarios as there were paid staff people working in that office. So if you had 10 staff people working in office, there were at least 10 volunteers working
yeah,
somewhere. The office
yeah,
could not function without the volunteers. Now that COVID comes, international borders are closed, flights are interrupted. You can't get people from overseas. The seminaries don't want their seminarians there for fear that the younger people will catch COVID. The colleges and universities, the local ones who were encouraging their students to community service, same thing. We don't want our younger students getting sick. So all those 3 or 4 sources of reliable volunteers dried up immediately.
yeah.
So they reopened the office, better than me, April, May, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
They only had paid staff, and they actually had reduced their headcount because of the cash flow problem.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But this is gonna solve itself, I think, once people, people are traveling more, and you could see that international pilgrims
I was bound
can
to
come in.
determine at the moment it was legal to go, I went. I made sure
Exactly.
that I had all vaccinations, but nobody was going to keep me away.
Exactly. But also I wanted to mention, I've shown this on the screen a few times, but you have written a really nice post on the forum about if you want to volunteer,
Yeah.
a long post with how to do it.
I have to change the name.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to link to this. I'm going to link to this in the video underneath in the description for people that are interested.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that's, and then I'm sure you could help people if they have questions. They can reply to this thread.
Anybody
and I'm sure.
DMs me, I always respond within a day or two. If they write the open forum, whatever I say is going to be in the open forum. So
yeah. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about your book, because you've written a book about all of your experiences. I'm sure it starts from 2013 and all the way up till the book was published.
Actually.
Yeah. Oh, okay. 2019. So tell us about the book. How was the idea? How did you come up with the idea for the book?
Well, you've known me for almost since I started doing Caminos, like 2013, 2014.
Because I know on the forum you write always very long posts, and I was thinking this is actually something very natural that you should write a book, because your posts are very long and very detailed. It's in almost like a book form,
Yeah. Well, somebody actually told me I should pull all my posts and categorize them by subject matter, and then put them chronologically and just write all my posts.
Yeah, you could do that.
Tom's collected wisdom. For years, after I had my Caminos, I would recount my story, and after a few years, people started saying you should write a book. I demurred. By 2018, 2019, I was getting tired of saying no, I don't want to write a book, and then I started saying, wait for the book. Wait for the book. Never really intending to write the book. I was just politely putting these people off. And people said, oh, good. Where am I going to be able to buy it? I said, I don't know. So, in the winter of 2019, 2020, like around the holidays, my mom was visiting here. She lives in upstate New York, where it's very cold and snowy. Not a lot of snow, just the same, like 5 centimeters every day. It's kind of like Santiago, but every day.
Yeah.
Sun comes up, it melts. It snows again overnight, it melts, and so on and so forth. So anyway, she's been up there in years. So I go get her, bring her down here for a month or 6 weeks. So she was here last February, March, and we were watching COVID spread and watching it get out of Italy and into Europe. And I told my wife, I said, as soon as it hits international air travel, we're in trouble. There's going to probably be some kind of disruption to air travel. So I told my mom, I think it's best we get you home where you're safer, because she lives in farm country, very sparsely populated. So, but as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, what am I going to do with all the time not having to entertain my mom? So took her home. I came back about a week later. When I went up, nobody was wearing masks. When I came back, everybody on the plane was wearing masks before being told. So I came home and I said, I got all this time on my hand. How am I going to do it? So I said, okay, write the book. So I started with an outline of stories, and then I made them more or less chronological. And then I discussed it with a friend who said, you need to identify stories that occur when you're volunteering versus stories when you're on pilgrimage. So the title of each chapter has a P, Peter, or V, Victor, to indicate this is on pilgrimage or this is volunteering. And I just started writing, and I disciplined myself. And in the beginning, I was writing 2 stories a day and 3-4 pages. And I would reread it and edit it to be more concise, but I'm not a very good editor if I don't work. And ultimately, I had 79 stories, and I decided that some of them were either redundant to other stories I told. So I took the better of the 2 or 3, and some were silly, some, I don't know. So
yeah,
anyway,
so it's just a collection of stories then, right? It's not like how to prepare for the Camino. That's not this book.
No, and the original rear cover material says what it is and is not. It's not a guidebook.
Yeah.
It's not how I did my Camino. It's not any kind of a spiritual or religious book, although a lot of people have said it affected them that way. Wasn't my intention. It was literally a retelling of stories that either I was personally involved in, or in one case, something that happened sort of while I was out there, and I heard about it contemporaneously and then did a deep dive on it and reported it because, quite frankly, griffin vultures eating a French day hiker near but not on the Camino was rather salacious.
Wow.
It's in the book, and but everything in the book is true. The only thing I did is change names, unless the person was a public person, like our mutual friend Rebecca Scott, who's known to the world.
That's great.
And ultimately, I think, I don't remember, you check the table of I think it's 62 stories made the cut, and they go up until literally the last day I was volunteering in May. Yeah, I think, no. The last 2 stories are May of 2020, when I had to run in with the faith healers, and then August of 2019, where I became a cofrade, or a lay brother in the Apostle St. James, which
that's
is
nice.
kind of interesting because they conferred on me the title of Don. And there's at least one person in Santiago, a mutual friend of ours, who says, you can't use that. Only priests use that. And I corrected this person. I said, so how do you explain Don Quixote and Don Juan? And I said, I did my research. And my research indicates anybody who's, who's done something worthy.
Exactly. So that's why you've written the book as Don Tomas.
Yeah, because my first name is Thomas. Not Tomas. In retrospect, I probably should have done the Spanish spelling, but it doesn't matter. So
it doesn't matter.
My name is Don Thomas. I mean, you spent time in the States, you understand what I mean. Like Donald Thomas, and which is not true, but there's a very simple reason for that, where people are going to scratch their heads and say, why didn't he just use his name? I had a long and very interesting career, and I worked for my government. They have extremely rigid and strict non-disclosure agreements. And it doesn't matter if you write anything during your lifetime, it's got to be submitted for pre-clearance. Well, I didn't want to deal with that. And none of this book alludes, suggests, or makes any reference to that prior life. So I felt
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It seems like this has gotten a really, very good ratings. You have almost 5 stars, 13 ratings there. And you can get it as
if only it reflected itself in the volume. But again,
it's available paperback and Kindle, so it's like an Amazon publisher book.
Yeah.
So
One thing I want to add about the book. The book went out and the ratings were very good and they continue to be very good. But anonymous people, as well as good friends, have pointed out that there are a number of grammatical errors in the book. And I reread the book and I said, some of them are style differences. Like one woman who used to edit my professional work said, you got too many commas and too many hyphens. And I said, okay. But then I had another guy who edited the book for me. He was a professional writer in the aerospace industry for 40 years. He didn't have any problem with that. So,
yeah.
well, but then somebody pointed out that if you're missing accents on Spanish words, they consider that a spelling error. And I said, okay. So as we sit, I have a Spanish teacher who used to be a school teacher scrubbing this thing. I've made all the changes. We're going to do a second. I call it just a revised edition. There's no new content. It's just cleaned up.
Yeah.
It's going to be sitting out there for a while. So I decided I'll spend the money and I'll get the second version posted, but it's identical. I've had a few people on the forums, they're interested in the corrected version.
I just think it's you gave me a copy of the book a while back when it came out. I have to admit I haven't been able to read all of it because I have a 4-year-old son and it's complicated. I don't have much time to read.
Well,
But
I know it'll be a handful.
Yeah. So I'll add a link to the book in the description of the video for those of you interested in getting it. Anything else you wanted to say about the book or anything else?
Well, I already mentioned that the book is going to be re-released with no new material, just being cleaned up for posterity's sake. And when I've had cause to go back and reread what I wrote originally, I had a light bulb moment. I said, "Darn, this is a good book." While I was cranking out story after story, it was like, well, I got to get this done, and it was almost like a work project or a term paper for university, and then, but going back a year later and rereading it, and I said, wow. I did write it.
No, but the idea of this book is the idea of this book is good because it's not like how to prepare for the Camino, because there's tons of books about that, and it's not a book about this was my Camino day 1, day 2, day 3, because there's a lot of books about that. This is just a collection of various stories that have that you learned or happened to you, and it's since you've done so many Caminos and been working at the Pilgrims Office for so many years, I'm sure you've collected a lot of stories,
Yeah, I have. It's been a wonderful ride. I have a saying that I must have said something in a FaceTime to my wife about the quality of my first Camino. When I came home, she presented it to me professionally framed. It said, the journey is the destination. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
And I've heard it several times since then. I don't know who it's originally attributed to. Basically, it says you need to enjoy the Camino while you're on it, not be focused on getting to the cathedral necessarily or the bed race, as we allude to.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
The quality of each day, not the number of days, it's what you do with those days. It was it's been a fascinating ride, so to speak, and I hope to continue into the future. I plan tentatively, and a lot of it depends on my wife's situation. I would like to do the Via de la Plata in the spring of 2022. Unfortunately, I'm not permitted to be away for 6 weeks. So I'm thinking of renting a bicycle at Sevilla, and that nominally takes 2.5 to 3 weeks. So,
yeah, because that's a long Camino if you want to walk all the way or bike all the way from there.
Yeah. Because I ride a European style. Let's see, in the area of Belgium I used to live, they call them Oma feets, like grandmother bicycles. You sit bolt upright and get all the comfortable features. I ride that every day to go to the gymnasium.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so it's not alien to me. So that's just a thought. And then, of course, The final thing about volunteering, I mentioned it's earlier that it's dynamic. The last day I was there, last few hours I was there, I got caught part of a conversation from the person who now runs the volunteer program. I told him I would very much like to come for my usual month in July and August, and he said, "We'll see." And then he started speaking to me in Spanish, and the gist of it was, things are changing. We don't know what it will be like next summer. So I said, well, I'm here, and I'd do anything. So in connected with that, the odd thing is, as I was saying my goodbyes, there were 4 people dressed in civilian kind of Camino casual clothes that were being trained as volunteers. 1 was an Irish expat and 3 were local. These were all local volunteers. My takeaway from that is it almost looks like the new leader or the new manager of the volunteer program, instead of relying on primarily seminaries and various schools and international volunteers, it looks like they may be trying to build a cadre of local people who have been vaccinated to the excellent Galician standards and who want to do this as volunteer work. So I'm not worried, but it's on my scope that there may be less of a need for outside volunteers in future, but I don't know that yet. I just absolutely don't know that.
Well, I think next year, the 2022, is going to be a very busy year. So they may need both volunteers from locally and volunteers from far away. So I don't know. For next year, I don't think there's going to be a problem. Of course, after that, who knows?
Well,
but
I'm coming anyway, so
exactly.
I can't stay away.
Exactly. Well, anyway, I thank you for doing this interview.
It's been a pleasure, Igor. I look forward to seeing the final. I know you'll make me look good.
Yes, of course. We had. What I want to do with this YouTube channel is I want to try, because I've been doing, as you know, and other people know, I've been doing a lot of COVID videos over the last year and a half. I'm kind of done with that, because we're doing so well now. It's people kind of, there's nothing new to tell every week. But I wanted to have conversation with people like you that maybe have done products related to Camino, like your book, or have anything to talk to me about related to the Camino. So if you have something like that and you're watching this video, get in touch with me at my email on the screen. And then maybe we could have a talk about whatever you're doing with the Camino. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Igor.
It's good to talk to you, and
Always.
hope everything is good at home. And then I'll see you on the forum.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.